About the author, John Berryman. He was born in 1914 and died in 1972. He was an American poet and scholar. He is best known for the Dream Songs in 1969, which was a sequence of 385 poems. So 385 poems he wrote. It was a collection of poems and he named it Dream Songs, and it was a sequence, and then he won the Pulitzer Prize for the Dream Songs. He also won the National Book Award. So he's a well-known writer and much acclaimed writer. So we have this story. It seems like a very small poem, very insignificant kind of a poem, and it's just about a boy and a ball, but it teaches us uh, a great lesson for life. So let us see. That's the introduction to the poem. The poet John Berryman, through his poem, The Ball Poem, has described the reality of life which everyone has to face one day. He has touched the topic of how to stand up against the miseries and sorrows of life, and also how to be responsible in life. The Ball Poem. As we go with the lines, I'm going to explain the lines to you. The Ball Poem. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. The poet is talking about a boy who has lost his ball. He wants to know about him and his reaction because he has lost his ball. Further, he asks himself what this boy will do after losing his ball. So he's thinking, what is the boy now? So when he loses the ball, what is he going to do now? So he says the ball is bouncing merrily down the street, and then it goes into the water, and there it is in the water. And so what is the boy going to do? How is he going to feel after losing the ball? The poet has seen the ball going away from the boy. He says that the ball was cheerfully jumping up and down in the street. This means that when the ball skipped from the boy's hand, it went into the street, and later on it fell into the nearby river. So that's how the ball went away from the boy's hands. Now through these lines we have different literary devices. You must have understood by now what literary devices are. They are these figures of speech that are used to adorn the poem with beautiful words. So anaphora, use of anaphora, the first literary device is anaphora. It is a use of repeated words in 2 or 3 more lines. What is the boy, what, and the merrily bouncing merrily over. So these are they are the repeated words in 2 or more lines. So when in 2 or more lines the words are repeated, you call them anaphora. Then assonance, repeated use of vowel. When there is a repeated use of vowel, you call it assonance. Boy, now, who, lost. So O is repeated, the vowel O. That's why there is assonance here. Then imagery. Imagery, you can imagine the poet has created a picture before you. When the poet says merrily bouncing down the street, it clearly gives you a picture of the ball bouncing down the street very happily. It seems like a very happy movement. It goes merrily bouncing down the street. Then repetition. What? The word what is repeated. What is the boy? What? And what is he going to do? So the word is repeated. So this is repetition. So these are the 4 literary devices that are used in this part of the poem. Next, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball is worthless. Now he senses his first responsibility. So these are the lines that let me explain them to you now. Firstly, the words grief, that is sorrow. Rigid means fixed. Then trembling is shaking. Harbor, there is a dock there, that's a port area. where ships, boats come and go. Then intrude. Intrude means someone who is invading his space. That is intrude. Dime. Dime is 10 cents. So it's the US because he was an American. That's why it's written dime. Worthless is valueless, useless. These are the words used there. The poet says that there is no benefit of consoling the boy by saying that he will get another ball because he has other balls too. So it is useless to tell the boy that I'll give you another boy. He says so because the boy is feeling very sad. Of course, the boy is sad because his ball is lost. He says so because the boy is feeling very sad. He is completely surrounded by sorrow. He is very, very sorrowful. How he is fixed? As the lines say, he is fixed. You see, look at the lines. He stands rigid, trembling. His grief fixes him. He's rooted at one place. He's trembling, he's shaking, he's staring down the street where his ball is gone, and all his young days into the harbor. So he's staring there. All his young life is just come to a standstill. His ball is gone. And the poet says, I did not want to intrude. He can say, I will give you another ball, I'll give you some money, but it is all useless. Now comes his first sense of responsibility. So he is surrounded by sorrow. He is sad because all the memories of his childhood days went into the harbor with the ball. The ball is very significant for him. It is his childhood, and he has lost all the memories of his childhood with that ball. Here the poet says that the boy is very sad as the ball, which has now gone into the water, reminds him of those sweet memories of the times when he owned it. So the boy is remembering the wonderful time he had with the ball, and now the ball is gone. He is learning. The next part, he is learning well behind his desperate eyes. The epistemology of loss. How to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. So this loss is unbearable for him, and he is grief stricken. So the poet says that he can't even tell the boy to take some money from him in order to buy another ball. He says so because the new ball will not bring the sense of belonging to the boy. Further, the poet says that the time has come for the boy to learn the responsibility of taking care of his things. So of course he is grief stricken, and he has lost the ball forever, and he says now it is time for him to learn that he has to take care of his things. In a world of possessions, people will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning. So he says this is a world of possessions. There are so many things that people have, and people will take balls. Balls will be lost always. So it is only a ball. He can buy another ball. He is saying to the little boy, and no one buys a ball back. You cannot really get it back. What you have lost, you cannot really get it back. You cannot buy it back. The same ball. That's what he means. Money is external. Money is external means it is superficial. He is learning well behind those desperate eyes. The epistemology of loss. How to stand up. The epistemology is the knowledge. It is a Greek word, episteme. So he is the epistemology means the study of knowledge. That is the theory of knowledge. That is, he has now studied that of loss. How to stand up, knowing that every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. So you have to stand up one day. You have to overcome that grief. Whatever that ball, whatever memories that ball had, he can have it in his mind, but he will never get that ball back again. So sometimes we need to face the grief Sometimes we need to face losses, and it is high time that you stand up for yourself. And of course, every man knows that one day you have to, you know that, and most people know that many days you know how to stand up for yourself and how to take that loss and face losses, and then also how to take care of your possessions. Now, possessions here means ownership, and external, there is here things which are with which feelings are not attached. So here it is external, means the ball is just, you cannot attach feelings just with one possession, with a thing. Things get destroyed, of course, and so we cannot attach any emotion to anything. Desperate is, now he is hopeless. Now the word epistemology is the Greek word episteme, which I said earlier, which means knowledge. It is the knowledge now, the knowledge of grief, the knowledge of facing losses. So that is what the writer means. Here the poet says the boy has to learn that in this materialistic world, many of his belongings will be lost. The ball represents his belongings. Will it be the worldly things or the relationships he is in possession of? Sometimes see the deeper meaning behind it, that the poet wants to say that not only just one thing, it is not just a thing that is lost, but you might also lose relationships, some emotions, that you face losses. Maybe one day you will have to lose some belongings. So the ball represents his belongings. So they are these worldly things, or the relationships that he is in possession of. He has some relationships, they might also break. So he says that there is an emotional break that has to happen sometime or the other in life. So he says that he has to learn to live without them no matter what. He has to learn to live. Of course, he has to learn to keep those safely, the other side, but he also has to, if he loses it, he also has to be brave enough to face the loss. That's what he really wants to say. He says no one can buy back such things for him. The poet said so because according to him, money can't buy everything. Well, money can't buy everything. If it does use some materialistic thing, still it would not be able to buy the sense of belonging. Sometimes you attach your emotions to one thing. Maybe somebody gave you something and you're really attached to that thing. So here he says you can buy another one like that, but that will not have that importance for you, that emotional attachment. So that sense of belonging that you have, sometimes but you cannot buy that back. You can buy a thing back, but you cannot buy the sense of attachment that you had, the sense of belonging that you had with that particular thing. So money is just superficial. He says that the boy is learning how to stand up against the sense of loss of things. It should not be lost, it is loss of things. This means that the boy is trying to learn the real truth of life, which states that you have to accept the miseries of life and stand up again. This is the truth which everyone has to learn in his or her life. So you have to stand up and face the losses, whether they are relationships, whether they are some precious things that you really had and you lost them, but you have to accept it, accept the miseries of life, and not let your life also go down with them, but you have to keep strong and face it and be firm. This is the truth which everyone has to learn in his or her life. The harsh truth of standing up against the odd miseries of life that everyone has to bear. So that's the harsh truth. Everyone has to bear burdens in life, and it can be a sense of loss of something that was precious to you, or of someone who was precious to you. So you have to learn to keep those things safely. So you have to grow up now. That's what he wants the boy to learn. Now here are the literary devices for this part. Alliteration. Alliteration, you know, the repetition. So use of sound B at the start of two consecutive words. Buys a ball back. So this is a alliteration sound of consonant buys the ball back. So it's a sound b again and again. That is repetitive sound. Then assonance. Assonance use a vowel sound. Use a vowel. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. So E, E, E. That's the use of E. That's assonance. Then repetition. Ball. Ball word is repeated here. Then rhyme scheme. There is no rhyme scheme followed in the poem. It's just a free verse. So you don't need to learn any rhyme scheme for this, thankfully. You just need to learn the words. You just need to learn the literary devices in each part of the poem and pay attention to it. I hope that you have liked or loved learning this poem. I have given some questions for this poem, so you can do those questions in your copies. All the best, students.